In the past 24, 48 hours, people have begged me to talk about Kony 2012, and I'm going to do that now. If you're tired of hearing about it, let me borrow your ear for just 30 seconds, and you can go on about your day. But long story short, there's an African warlord by the name of Kony, and he's been operating relatively unmolested for the past 25, 30 years. And his big focus has been raiding cities, kidnapping people, children primarily, killing the adults, and forcing the children to grow up and fight for his army, and if they're female, selling them to the sex trade. And he's a bad guy. He's a really bad guy. And the video and the movement is about vilifying this guy. Let's make him as famous as Adele. Let's make him as famous as George Clooney. Let's make him as famous as anybody else. Let's make him a household name that you hate, that you want to see destroyed. And let's put political pressure on the powers that be to get involved to destroy this man. It's as simple as that. That's the entire premise of the movement. So if that's all the time you have, there's your answer. Go on about your life and have a great day. Now, if you're interested in the details, let's get into the details real quick. I may not like a lot of what I have to say here, but in history, we have relatively, the civilized world, as I guess you'd call it, the first world has ignored what's going on in Africa. And it's because every time we've ever gotten involved, it's cost us millions of dollars, it's cost us lives, and it's been miserable. And the entire, I'm no expert, but the entire landscape of Africa is dotted with drought and plague and misery and lack of food and war-torn, war criminals, warlords destroying one another and fighting for what little resources there are. And there's very little we could do to stop it. It's almost a way of life for the people that are there, and it sucks. If you're born there, it's awful. If you're born almost anywhere else, you have a relatively better life. And you'll have a relatively longer life because of the amount of people that are being murdered and slaughtered, and for different causes, different reasons, religious war and war over resources. It's basically like a really terrifying game of Civ 5, if you want it in terms that I think you can relate to. So the American government has stayed out of it for a long time. And this group, the Invisible Children, has gotten involved to try to make this problem that we've all relatively ignored visible again. And due to their efforts, thanks to their efforts, they've managed to get the American government to send some technology, some weapons, about 100 tacticians over to try to help the Ugandan government capture and kill this guy, Kony. And it's a step in the right direction. It's a very small step in the right direction. And the cynical side of me says, if you remove one warlord, there's still more to be dealt with. And there's still more war criminals there, and there's still more terrible things happening. There's only so much that we can do. But that's not what the Kony 2012 movement's really about. And what I want to talk about is what that movement's really about. And I may see some things here to upset you, and I'm sorry in advance, but I'm going to get real. The cynical side of a lot of people has made us think, well, this is just the trendy movement that's going on right now. And that's true. This is the trendy movement, like the yellow cancer bracelets and whatever other thing that we picked up. You know, we all fought together for this at one point. We all fought together for that at some point. And then we forgot, and it's not a big deal. Sometimes we fixed it, sometimes we didn't. But that's how the world works. And the cynical side of me says, well, I wish that wasn't the case, and I know you probably feel that way too. But the reality of it is, culture dominates our world. What we're talking about, what we're working on, what the world is in the current mind of the world is what's going on in the world. That's it. So if we're not talking about Africa, if we're not talking about the warlords there, if we're not talking about genocide, then it is, in fact, invisible. And it will go on completely unmolested. And someone has taken that machine, that pitiful, despicable, awful machine that we call the American mindscape, the popular topic, and they're making this trend. They're using the system to their advantage to make this trend to try to make a difference in the world. And you may hate that. Hell, I kind of hate it. I hate that that's the way it works. But man, it's going to make a difference. And you get a lot of people who would you call an armchair activist, someone who's sitting at home, doesn't really care. Now they're spamming their Facebook with Kony 2012, Kony 2012, because it's trending. Because it's trendy to do so. And good on them. That's great, man. You're finally getting involved. You're finally standing up for something that matters. You're finally getting on your feet. And even if you're not, even if you're sitting on your ass and all you're doing is typing in Kony 2012, then you have your milkshake and you watch your television and you play your video games, you're like, I made a difference today. You actually did make a difference today. Now, Gandhi said, be the change. I think it was Gandhi, misquote here possibly. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And the only way to do that is to get involved. The only way to do that is to be an activist. And I would love it if everyone that was watching this video today dropped what they were doing and went and built a school, or went and built a hospital in a village that doesn't have one, or they volunteered at their local homeless shelter or their local Head Start center and made a real difference in some lives immediately around them. That would be fantastic. But it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. It takes a very strong-willed person. It takes a very self-sacrificing person. It takes a very rare person to do those kinds of things. Anybody can type in Kony 2012. Anybody can share that link on their Facebook. This is the way we will get these things done in the future. And they said something in the video that I do want to address, one more thing. They talk about how the structure, they show power as a pyramid structure. And they show the handful of people in charge on top and the multitudes, you and me, down at the bottom. Maybe because I have a YouTube channel, maybe I'm somewhere one level up than your average person, but not by much. And they said that we're flipping that pyramid upside down because with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all these other networks, all this other social media, we were able to share an idea. And by sharing that idea, we can influence the people that are at the top of that pyramid. And in doing so, we flip the system. Because what's getting discussed down here is becoming more important than what's getting discussed up there. And that's fucking fantastic. And that's what this is about. So if the cynical side of you says, well, there's only so much we can do for Africa, you're right. And the cynical side says to you, this is an American charity. Most of the money is going to go to operational costs. I'm not going to spend any dime. You're right. And if the cynical side of you says, man, typing in Kony 2012 when you could be out volunteering and helping people directly, you're right. And in each of those individual points, you're right. But from an idealistic point of view, in the way that we change the way the system works, by participating in this, and the next trend, and the next trend, and the next trend, and the next trend, when we are the ones deciding what trends, you're breaking the system. You're changing the world. So I'm proud of the people who are armchair activists today. I'm proud of the people who are just sitting there on their ass, not building hospitals, not building, because they are finally having an impact. And the way you used to think about that, doesn't really matter anymore. There used to be a time where you could say they're not real activists. They're not really affecting the world. Well, tell that to the people of Uganda. And when we've got this guy's head on a pike at the end of the year, tell his disembodied head